Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn He, Abdallah ibn Hamdan Nasir al-Dawla al-Taghlibi, more commonly known simply by his laqab of Nasir al-Dawla, was the second Hamdanid ruler of the Emirate of Mosul, encompassing most of the Jazira. As the senior member of the Hamdanid dynasty, he inherited the family power base around Mosul from his father, and was able to secure it against challenges by his uncles. Hassan became involved in the court intrigues of the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad, and, between 942 and 943, he, with the assistance of his brother Ali, established himself as amir al-umara, or de facto regent for the Abbasid Caliph. He was driven back to Mosul by Turkish troops, however, and subsequent attempts to challenge the Buyids, who seized control of Baghdad and Lower Iraq, ended in repeated failure. Twice, his capital Mosul was captured by Buyid forces, which were, however, unable to defeat local opposition to the rule. As a result of his failures to retain power, Nasir al-Dawla declined in influence and prestige. He was eclipsed by the actions of his brother Ali, who established his rule more firmly over Aleppo and northern Syria. After 964, Nasir al-Dawla's eldest son Abu Talib exercised de facto rule over his domains, and in 967, Abu Talib and his brothers deposed and imprisoned the father, who died in captivity a year or two later. Origin and family. Nasir al-Dawla was born al-Hasan ibn Abdullah, the eldest son of He Abdullah ibn Hamdan, son of Hamdan ibn Hamdan ibn al-Harith, who gave his name to the Hamdanid dynasty. The Hamdanids were a branch of the Banu Talib, an Arab tribe resident in the area of the Jazira since pre-Islamic times. The Talibs had traditionally controlled Mosul and its region until the late 9th century, when the Abbasid government tried to impose firmer control over the province. Hamdan ibn Hamdan was one of the most determined Talibi leaders in opposing this move. Notably, in his effort to fend off the Abbasids, he secured the alliance of the Kurds living in the mountains north of Mosul, a fact which would be of considerable importance in his family's later fortunes. Family members intermarried with Kurds, who were also prominent in the Hamdanid military. Hamdan's possessions were captured in 895 by the Abbasid Caliph al-Mutadid, and Hamdan himself was forced to surrender near Mosul after a long chase. He was put in prison, but his son Hussein ibn Hamdan, who had surrendered the fortress of Ardamush to the Caliph's forces, managed to secure the family's future. He raised troops among the Talib in exchange for tax remissions, and established a commanding influence in the Jazira by acting as a mediator between the Abbasid authorities and the Arab and Kurdish population. It was this strong local base which allowed the family to survive its often strained relationship with the central Abbasid government in Baghdad. During the early 10th century, Hussein was a successful general, distinguishing himself against the Kharijites and the Tulunids, but was disgraced after supporting the failed usurpation of Ibn al-Mutaz in 908. His younger brother Ibrahim was governor of Diyar in 919, and after his death in the next year he was succeeded by another brother, Dawood. Hassan's father Abdallah served as Emir of Mosul in 905 to 913 quarters, was repeatedly disgraced and rehabilitated as the political situation changed in Baghdad, until reassuming control of Mosul in 925 6. Enjoying firm relations with the powerful commander of the Caliphal army, Munis al-Qadam. In 929 he played a leading role in the short-lived usurpation of al-Qahir against al-Muqtadir, and was killed during its suppression. According to the researcher Marius Canard, Abdullah established himself as the most prominent member of the first generation of the Hamdanid dynasty, and was essentially the founder of the Hamdanid Hamdanid Emirate of Mosul, consolidation of control over the Jazira during his absence in Baghdad in his final years from 920–921 on. Abdullah relegated authority over Mosul to Hasan. After Abdullah's death, however, al-Muqtadir took the opportunity to avenge himself upon the Hamdanids, and appointed an unrelated governor over Mosul, while Abdullah's domains were divided among his surviving brothers. Faced with the claims of his uncles, Hasan was left in charge of a small portion on the left bank of the Tigris. In 930, after the caliph's governor died, Hasan managed to regain control over Mosul, but his uncles Nasir and Said soon removed him from power and confined him to the western parts of the Diyar. In 934, Hasan again recovered Mosul, but Said, residing in Baghdad and supported by the caliphal government, evicted him again. Hasan fled to Armenia, from where he orchestrated Said's murder. Only then did his troops occupy Mosul and establish him permanently as its ruler. Finally, after defeating caliphal forces under the Wazir ibn Mukhtar and the Banu Habib, his rivals among the Talib, in late 935 the Caliph al-Radi was forced to formally recognize him as governor of Mosul and the entire Jazira, in exchange for an annual tribute of 70,000 gold dinars and supplies of flour for the two caliphal capitals of Baghdad and Samarra. Resistance to Hasan's rule outside of his family's core region around Mosul remained. However, in Diyar Bakr, the governor of Mir Fariqin, Ali ibn Jafar, rebelled against Hasan, and in Diyar Muda, the Khazid tribes of the region around Saruj also revolted. Hasan subdued them and secured control over the entire Jazira by the end of 936, due to the efforts of his brother Ali, who was given the governorship of the two provinces as a reward. In the meantime, the defeated Banu Habib, some 10,000 strong and under the leadership of al-Ala ibn al-Mu'amma, left the lands and fled to territory controlled by the Byzantine Empire. This unprecedented move may be explained by the fact that a significant portion of the tribe still practiced Christianity, or by pressure upon the grazing lands by tribes from the south. But the primary goal of the move was to escape from Hamdanid authority and taxation. Hasan also attempted to extend his control to Sajjad-ruled Azerbaijan in 934 and 938, but his efforts failed. Struggle for control of the caliphate while he tried to consolidate his rule over Mosul. Hasan showed himself conspicuously loyal to the Abbasid regime, and refused to support the revolt of Munis al-Kadhim against the Caliph al-Muqtadir in 932. Munis succeeded in overthrowing and killing al-Muqtadir, but over the next few years the Abbasid government all but collapsed, until in 936 the powerful governor of Wasit, Muhammad ibn Raiq, assumed the title of Amir al-Umara, and with the de facto control of the Abbasid government, the Caliph al-Radi was reduced to a figurehead role, while the extensive civil bureaucracy was cut down dramatically both in size and power. Ibn Raiq's position was anything but secure, however, and soon a convoluted struggle for control of his office, and the caliphate with it, broke out among the various local rulers and the Turkish and Elamite military chiefs, which ended in 946 with the ultimate victory of the Buyids. Thus, in the late 930s, Hasan, encouraged by his control over a large and rich domain, entered the intrigues of the Abbasid court, and became one of the main contenders for the title of Amir al-Umara. At first, Hasan tried to exploit the weakness of the Abbasid government to withhold his payment of tribute, but the Turk Baykam, who had ousted Ibn Raiq in 938, quickly forced him to back down. Hasan then supported Ibn Raiq in the latter's quest to regain his lost position. Baykam tried to forcefully evict Hasan from his Jazira domains, but in vain, and was eventually killed in a skirmish with Kurdish brigands in early 941. Hasan's great chance came in early 942, when the Caliph al-Mataki and his closest aides fled Baghdad to escape the city's imminent fall to the Buyid of Basra and sought refuge at Mosul. Hasan now made a direct bid for power. He had Ibn Raiq assassinated and succeeded him as Amir al-Umara, receiving the honorific laqab of Nasir al-Dawla. He then escorted the Caliph back to Baghdad, which they entered on the 4th of June 942. To secure his position further, Nasir al-Dawla married his daughter to the Caliph's son, along with the cousin, Husayn ibn Said. Nasir al-Dawla's brother Ali was instrumental in the Hamdanid enterprise, taking the field against the Buyids, who still controlled the rich province of Basra and were determined to regain Baghdad. After scoring a victory over them, Ali was awarded the laqab of Saif al-Dawla, by which he became famous. This double award marked the first time that a laqab incorporating the prestigious element al-Dawla were granted to anyone other than the wazir, the caliphate's chief minister, and was a symbolic affirmation of the military's predominance over the civil bureaucracy. The Hamdanid's success and rule over the Abbasid capital lasted for little more than a year. They lacked funds and were politically isolated, finding little support among the caliphate's most powerful vassals, the Samanids of Transoxiana and the Ikhshidids of Egypt. Consequently, when in late 943 a mutiny broke out among the troops over pay issues, under the leadership of the Turkish general Tuzun, they were forced to quit Baghdad and return to the base, Mosul. Caliph al-Mataki now appointed Tuzun as Amir al-Umara, but the Turks' overbearing manner induced al-Mataki to once again seek refuge in the Hamdanid court. The Hamdanid forces under Saif al-Dawla took the field against Tuzun's army, but were defeated. The Hamdanids now concluded an agreement with Tuzun which allowed them to keep the Jazira and even gave them nominal authority over northern Syria, in exchange for an annual tribute of 3.6 million dirhams. In the meantime, the caliph was brought to al-Raqqa for greater safety, while Husayn ibn Said tried to secure control over northern Syria and preempt Egypt's ruler Muhammad ibn Tufayl al-Ikhshid taking control of the region. The attempt failed, as al-Ikhshid himself advanced into Syria, took Aleppo and marched to Raqqa, where he met the caliph. Al-Ikhshid tried to persuade al-Mataki to come to Egypt under his protection, but the caliph refused, and al-Ikhshid returned to Egypt. Instead, al-Mataki, persuaded by Tuzun's assurances of loyalty and safety, returned to Baghdad, where Tuzun deposed and blinded him, replacing him with al-Mustaqfi. At the news of this crime, Nasir al-Dawla again refused payment of tribute, but Tuzun marched against him and forced his compliance. Henceforth, Nasir al-Dawla would be tributary to Baghdad, but he would find it difficult to resign himself to his loss of power over the city he once ruled, and the subsequent years would feature several attempts to regain it. Wars with the Buyids. In late 945, Tuzun died. His death weakened the Abbasid government's ability to maintain its independence against the rising power of the Buyids, who under Ahmad ibn Buyids had already consolidated control over Fars and Kerman, and secured the cooperation of the Buyids. Al-Mustaqfi's secretary, Ibn Shazid, tried to confront the Buyids by calling upon Nasir al-Dawla al-Dawla, but Ahmad advanced on Baghdad with his troops, and in January 946 he obtained his appointment as Amir al-Umara with the honorific Mu'izz al-Dawla. To secure the position, the Buyids immediately marched against the Hamdanids. Nasir al-Dawla countered by marching down the eastern bank of the Tigris River and blockading Baghdad. In the end, however, the Buyids defeated the Hamdanids in battle and forced Nasir al-Dawla to retire to Uqbara. For that, Nasir al-Dawla began negotiations with the Buyids, aiming to secure recognition of Hamdanid control over the Jazira, Syria and even Egypt as tributaries of the Caliphate, with the boundary between Buyid and Hamdanid spheres placed at Tikrit. Negotiations were disrupted by a rebellion among the Hamdanid's Turkish troops, but Mu'izz al-Dawla, who for the moment preferred stable Hamdanid state to anarchy on his northern border, helped Nasir al-Dawla suppress it. The peace was agreed on the terms outlined above, and was affirmed by one of Nasir al-Dawla's sons being taken as a hostage to Baghdad. Conflict between the two rivals was renewed in 948, when Mu'izz al-Dawla again marched against Mosul, but was forced to cut off his campaign to assist his brother Rukn al-Dawla, who was having trouble in Persia. In exchange, Nasir al-Dawla agreed to recommence the payment of tribute for the Jazira and Syria, as well as to add the names of the three Buyid brothers after that of the Caliph in the Friday prayer. Another round of warfare erupted in 956 to 958. While the Buyids were preoccupied with the rebellion of their Dalamite troops under Rezbahan ibn Vindad Khurshid in southern Iraq, Nasir al-Dawla the opportunity to advance south and capture Baghdad. After the suppression of the Dalamite revolt, however, the Hamdanids were not able to maintain the position in the face of the Buyid counteroffensive, and abandoned the city. Peace was renewed in exchange for the recommencement of tribute and an additional indemnity. But when Nasir al-Dawla refused to send the second year's payment, the Buyid ruler advanced north. Unable to confront the Buyid army in the field, Nasir al-Dawla abandoned Mosul and fled to Mir Fariqin and then to his brother Saif al-Dawla in Aleppo. The Buyids captured Mosul and Nasir, but the Hamdanids and the supporters withdrew to the home territory in the mountains of the north, taking with them the treasures as well as all government records and tax registers. As a result, the Buyid army was unable to support itself in the conquered territory, all the more since the predominantly Dalamite troops were resented by the local people, who launched guerrilla attacks on them. Saif al-Dawla tried to mediate with Mu'izz al-Dawla, but his first approaches were rebuffed. Only when he agreed to assume the burden of paying his brother's tribute for the entire Diyar did the Buyid ruler agree to peace. This agreement marks the reversal of roles between the two Hamdanid brothers, and the establishment of the predominance of the family's Syrian branch. In 964, Nasir al-Dawla tried to renegotiate the terms of the arrangement, but also to secure Buyid recognition for his eldest son, Fadl Abu Talib al-Ghardanfar, as his successor. Mu'izz al-Dawla refused Nasir al-Dawla's demands, and again invaded Hamdanid territory. Once again Mosul and Nasir were captured, while the Hamdanids fled to the mountain fortresses. As in 958, the Buyids were unable to maintain themselves for long in the Jazira, and soon an agreement was reached which allowed the Hamdanids to return to Mosul. This time, however, Abu Talib emerged as the effective leader in his father's place. It was with him, rather than the aged Nasir al-Dawla, that Mu'izz al-Dawla concluded a treaty. The end of Nasir al-Dawla's rule came in 967, in the same year that saw the deaths of his brother Saif al-Dawla and his great rival Mu'izz al-Dawla. al-Dawla. Nasir al-Dawla was reportedly so much affected by his brother's death that he lost interest in life and became remote and avaricious. In the end, Abu Talib, already the de facto governor of the Emirate, deposed him with the aid of his Kurdish mother, Fatima bint Amir. Nasir al-Dawla tried to counter them by turning to one of his other sons, Hamdan, but he was seized and imprisoned in the fortress of Ardamusht, where he died in 968 or 969. Domestic policies. Nasir al-Dawla was heavily criticized by contemporaries for his oppressive fiscal policies and the suffering they caused among the population. The traveler Ibn Hawqal, who visited Nasir al-Dawla's domains, reports in length on his seizure of private land in the most fertile regions of the Jazira on flimsy legal charges, until he became the greatest landowner in his province. This was linked with the practice of a monoculture of cereals, destined to feed the growing population of Baghdad, and coupled with heavy taxation, so that Saif al-Dawla and Nasir al-Dawla are said to have become the wealthiest princes in the Muslim world. Nevertheless, the Hamdanid administrative machinery seems to have been fairly rudimentary, and the tribute paid to the Buyids, estimated at somewhere between 2 and 4 million dirhams, when it was paid at all, was a heavy burden on the treasury. Bibliography. Bianquist, Saif al-Dawla, The Encyclopedia of Islam, New Edition, Volume 9, San S.Z.E. Leiden and New York, Brill, pp. 103-110. ISBN 9004094199. Bonner, Michael. The Waning of Empire, 861-945. In Robinson, Charles A. The New Cambridge History of Islam, Volume 1. The Formation of the Islamic World, 6th to 11th Centuries. Cambridge and New York, Cambridge University Press, pp. 305-359. ISBN 978-0521838238. Bowen, H. Nasir al-Dawla, The Encyclopedia of Islam, New Edition, Volume 7, Mifnaz, Leiden and New York, Brill, pp. 994-995. ISBN 9004094199. Canard, Marius, Hamdanids, The Encyclopedia of Islam, New Edition, Volume 3, H. Iram, Leiden and New York, Brill, pp. 126-131. ISBN 9004094199. Kennedy, Hugh N. The Prophet and the Age of the Caliphates, The Islamic Near East from the 6th to the 11th Century. Harlow, UK. Pearson Education Limited. ISBN 0582-405254.